The train rocked gently beneath me as the city came into view, its skyline carved against a sunset the color of burnished copper. I hadn't seen my son, Caleb, in nearly 8 months longer than we had ever gone without a proper visit. His texts had become shorter, his calls infrequent and rushed. Whenever I asked if something was wrong, he'd brush it off with forced cheerfulness. Asterisk just busy, Mom. Work's crazy. Everything's fine. Asterisk, but everything didn't feel fine. I could hear it in the hollowness of his laugh, in the way he spoke, as if someone else were listening. A mother always knows. As the train groaned to a stop, I gathered my coat and stepped onto the platform. The autumn air chilled my cheeks, but the sight of Caleb waiting by the stairs warmed something inside me. He looked thinner than I remembered, paler, with the faintest bruise peeking beneath the collar of his jacket. He tried to hide it, angling his body so it faced away from me, but I had already seen. "Mom," he called too brightly, rushing forward to hug me. His arms were tight, almost desperate. I pressed a kiss to his cheek. "Hi, sweetheart, you look tired." He laughed awkwardly, releasing me. "Just been a long week. Let's get your bag." As we walked toward his car, I noticed him glancing around the parking lot as if expecting someone, or avoiding someone. His fingers twitched near his pockets, restless. Something inside me stirred with unease, but I forced a smile. "Where are you taking me first?" I asked. He hesitated only a second. "There's this new place I want you to see, a local pub, great food, super friendly." A pub. On the first evening of my visit, usually, Caleb insisted on cooking dinner himself, a tradition we'd shared since he was 12 and decided scrambled eggs could solve loneliness. But tonight he seemed determined to avoid being home. I thought we might relax, I said gently. "Maybe watch that cooking show you like." His jaw tensed. "Just trust me, Mom. You'll like this place." Those words, asterisk, "just trust me," asterisk, echoed strangely, like a phrase rehearsed rather than naturally spoken. But I didn't argue. I simply nodded, letting him drive, watching his white, knuckled grip on the steering wheel. The pub was tucked into a dim, narrow street, its windows fogged with warmth, and the smell of fried onions drifting out each time the door opened. A neon sign flickered above it, buzzing like an angry wasp. Inside, the lighting was low, the music soft but melancholy, and the room filled with locals who seemed to know each other too well. Caleb led me to a small table near the bar. "I'll get us drinks," he said, already stepping away before I could answer. I settled into my chair, letting my eyes adjust. That was when I noticed him, the bartender. He was tall, broad, shouldered, with a trimmed beard and a stare sharp enough to cut glass. He wasn't just looking at me, he was studying me, assessing me, as if my presence disrupted something. Caleb returned too quickly with a glass of wine and a soda for himself. His hand shook slightly as he set them down. "So," I said softly, "want to tell me what's going on?" He flinched like a guilty child. "Nothing's going on. Just enjoy your drink, okay? I just need to step outside for a second." Outside, Caleb what? But he was already halfway to the door, moving with a kind of nervous urgency I had never seen in him. I stood halfway, ready to follow, when a firm grip closed around my wrist. The bartender, his touch was cold, his fingers strong. I turned sharply to face him, startled, but what shook me more was his expression, grim, almost pitying. "Ma'am," he said in a low voice meant only for me, "you shouldn't be here. My heart tripped. Excuse me. You need to listen carefully." He said, leaning in just enough for his breath to brush my ear. "Your son, he didn't bring you here for dinner. He brought you here because he had no choice." I stiffened. "What are you talking about?" The bartender glanced toward the door Caleb had vanished through. When his eyes returned to mine, something dark flickered in them. "Caleb owes people," he murmured, "dangerous people, and they know you're in town." Before I could breathe, before I could form words, his grip tightened. "You were never supposed to come," he whispered, "and now they're going to use you." A cold wave slammed through me, stealing my breath. I drew my arm back, trembling. "Let go of me." He released me suddenly, as if realizing he'd said too much. His face hardened, locking behind a wall of indifference. "Just be careful," he muttered before walking abruptly toward the back hallway. For a moment I sat frozen, the din of the pub fading into a distant hum. My son, my only child, what had he gotten himself into? What had I been dragged into? The fear rose slowly, a tide swallowing reason. I pushed back my chair and headed toward the restroom, needing a moment to breathe, to think, to understand. But deep down, I already knew something was terribly, terribly wrong. The restroom was narrow and dim, lit by a single buzzing fluorescent bulb that cast everyone it touched in a sickly shade of blue. I locked the door behind me, pressing my back against the cold metal as if it could keep the world out. My pulse thudded in my ears, loud enough to drown out my spinning thoughts. Asterisk, they're going to use you. Asterisk, the bartender's words echoed, crawling like frost along my spine. I gripped the edge of the sink, staring at my reflection pale, trembling, eyes wide with fear I'd never admit outside this tiny room. I had come to see my son, to cook with him, to spend a weekend laughing about old memories. I had not come to beat Leverage. A sudden clatter outside the restroom door snapped me upright, footsteps, heavy, deliberate, stopping right in front of me. I held my breath. A murmur of voices followed two men, low and tense. I couldn't make out what they were saying until one voice rose slightly. "The bartender's. She's here now. Yes, I know, I told him. But he's panicking, and if she finds out..." A pause. "No, she hasn't left. I've got an eye on her." My stomach dropped. Asterisk, they were watching me. Asterisk, whoever was on the other end of that conversation wasn't Caleb. The tone was colder, commanding. Something sinister slithered through every word. I stepped back, careful not to make noise, and scanned the restroom. The only window was small, absurdly small, placed high on the wall above the toilet. A ridiculous little square of darkness, framed by peeling paint. I stared at it, weighing fear against impossibility. Then the bartender's voice lowered again, this time more urgent. "We can't wait much longer. The boss said if the son doesn't pay tonight, we take the mother." My entire body went numb. There was no more thinking, no weighing options. Instinct maternal, primal took over. I dragged the wastebasket beneath the window, climbed onto it, and shoved the window upward. It groaned, resistant from years of rust, scraping against its frame loud enough to make my heart lurch. Footsteps shifted outside the door. Asterisk, no, no, no. Come on. Asterisk, I slammed my palm beneath the window and heaved. It finally gave way, jerking open just enough for a thin gust of night air to sting my face. Voices rose closer now. The doorknob jiggled. "Ma'am." The bartender called too calmly. "Everything all right in there?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I hoisted myself up, squeezing sideways, my jacket catching on the latch. The cold metal scraped my skin as I twisted and pushed until I tumbled out onto damp pavement behind the pub, hitting the ground with a soft grunt. The alley was narrow and shadowed, the faint glow of the street lamps blocked by overflowing dumpsters and old brick walls. The smell of grease and rain clung to everything. Inside the restroom, someone rattled the door harder. "Open it!" I scrambled to my feet, pressing myself against the wall, hidden beneath the darkness as the back door of the pub swung open. The bartender stepped out, his eyes scanning the alley, jaw clenched. But he wasn't alone. Another man followed him, shorter, stockier, with a heavy black jacket and a cigarette dangling from his lips. He exhaled smoke like a dragon in the cold air. "Where'd she go?" The stocky man growled. "She couldn't have gotten far." The bartender snapped. "Windows too small." Then check again. The man flicked his cigarette to the ground. "We can't lose her." My heart pounded violently against my ribs. My breath fogged the air, and I quickly turned my face away so the faint vapor wouldn't give me away. The bartender paced forward, footsteps crunching on gravel. I ducked behind a dumpster, praying they wouldn't hear how loudly I was breathing. If the boss finds out she slipped past us, the stocky man said he'll take it out on the kid, Caleb. The word hit me harder than the cold. My throat tightened, tears threatening to spill. But I swallowed them back. Crying now would get us both killed. Come on, the bartender muttered. Let's check the street. As they moved toward the mouth of the alley, I slipped out from behind the dumpster, staying low, staying silent, keeping distance. Their silhouettes stretched long against the sidewalk as they stopped beneath a flickering street lamp. When they turned the corner, I followed. 5 minutes passed agonizing minutes where every sound felt like a threat, every shadow a hand reaching for me. I stayed back far enough that they wouldn't notice me, but close enough to hear snippets of their conversation. Caleb's losing it, the stocky man said, thought he could buy time by bringing her here. He should have never involved her, the bartender muttered. Desperation makes people stupid. He's not stupid, just scared. He knows what happens to people who don't pay. Their slow walk continued, their voices chillingly casual as they discussed my son's fate, as if discussing a sports game or the weather. I felt something shift inside me, fear hardening into resolve. Every step I took behind them fed it, shaping my trembling panic into something sharper, stronger. They had threatened my son, they had touched my arm, they had spoken about me like property, and now, unknowingly, they were leading me straight toward the truth. Toward whatever nightmare Caleb had been living, toward the people who thought they could use me to break him. My breath steadied, my footsteps quieted. I followed them deeper into the night, no longer just a frightened mother crawling out of a window, but a woman ready to protect what was hers. No matter the cost, the alley funneled into a narrow side street, lined with shuttered stores and flickering yellow lamps. The night felt colder here, tighter, as though the air itself held its breath. I kept my distance, slipping from shadow to shadow, my footsteps softer than the hum of distant traffic. The bartender and the stocky man walked ahead with grim certainty, turning down a side path leading toward an old industrial area, rows of rusted warehouses and abandoned storage units, the kind of place where nobody asked questions, even if someone screamed. A metal gate groaned open as the stocky man pushed it. They slipped inside without glancing back. I crept forward and peered through the gap. The yard was wide, cluttered with broken pallets, cracked concrete, and weeds that had clawed their way through the ground. In the center sat a storage unit, its paint peeling, its padlock hanging open. A dim bulb flickered above it like a dying heartbeat. The two men weren't alone anymore. Another figure waited inside the unit, half in shadow. All I could see was the glint of a gold ring on his finger as he paced. The moment he spoke, I recognized the voice cold, commanding, merciless. Asterisk the boss. Asterisk so, he demanded as the bartender approached. Did you secure her? We almost had her, the stocky man muttered. She slipped through the bathroom window. A sharp crack sliced the air, a metal pipe slamming against the wall. The boss had struck it with venomous frustration. You idiots! A middle-aged woman outsmarted you. Do you understand the position you've put us in? The bartender flinched. We'll find her, you better. The boss exhaled slowly, then added, because if we don't have the mother tonight, Caleb is useless to us. My breath caught. I pressed a hand to my mouth to keep from crying out. Caleb, my baby boy was involved with these asterisk people. These monsters, the boss continued, voice curling with menace. He thought he could negotiate, thought we'd give him time to pay, but he owes 30,000, and sympathy isn't part of this business. 30,000. My knees nearly buckled. My son in debt like this, and to criminals, the bartender asked quietly, what about the kid? He looked like he wouldn't make it much longer. Good, the boss said coldly. Fear makes people cooperative. Something inside me cracked, loudly, painfully, but I didn't break down. Not now. Instead, I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket and opened the recorder, angling the microphone toward the men. Every word they spoke burned itself into my memory. The boss continued pacing. He brought her because he's desperate. He thinks if we see she cares about him, maybe we'll let him go. Pathetic. He really thought his mom could talk us out of it. The bartender scoffed. Family makes people stupid. Asterisk no. Asterisk I thought fiercely. Asterisk family makes people fight. Asterisk the stocky man kicked a broken crate. What if she's gone for good? What then? The boss paused, his shadow stretching across the concrete. Then we go after Caleb anyway. The mother was just leverage. Her disappearance won't save him. The recorder app ticked on, collecting every vile syllable. I pressed myself deeper into the darkness behind a stack of discarded wooden pallets as the men continued their conversation. Strategies, threats, hints of other people they had handled. Each word cut another piece of innocence from my son in my mind, but the more they revealed, the more I understood. Caleb wasn't a criminal. He was a prisoner, a young man drowning in debt that spiraled out of control, tangled in a web of fear, mistakes, and coercion. And he had tried desperately to protect me by hiding it. The boss finally barked, "Search the area again. She couldn't have gone far, and bring Caleb back here. He's useless wandering around begging for hope." The bartender and stocky man nodded and moved toward the exit. I ducked lower as they passed, heart hammering. Only the boss remained in the doorway of the unit, lighting a cigarette. The flame briefly illuminated his face, a scar down his left cheek, eyes cold and bored, like cruelty was simply routine. I retreated quietly, slipping back into the shadows until his figure disappeared behind the door. My legs trembled. My face was wet. I hadn't realized I'd been crying silently. But beneath the fear, beneath the ache, something fierce began to pulse in my chest. Resolve. I crouched behind a pile of metal scrap and opened my texting app. My hands shook, but I typed anyway. Asterisk, asterisk, Caleb, where are you? Are you safe? Text me right now. Asterisk, asterisk, I waited. Seconds stretched like hours. Then my phone buzzed. Asterisk, Mom. Asterisk, his typing bubble lingered, jittery, frantic. Asterisk, Mom, I'm sorry. Don't go back to the pub. Please just go home. I'll fix everything. I swear I'll asterisk. I swallowed the scream rising in my throat. I typed back. Asterisk, asterisk, Caleb, listen to me. I know, I heard everything. We're getting out of this. Meet me behind the old train depot. Do not talk to anyone. Hurry, asterisk, asterisk, a long pause, then asterisk, I'm on my way. Asterisk, asterisk, Mom, please be careful. Asterisk, I ended the recording and slipped my phone away. My palms were sweaty, my heart still racing, but my purpose felt sharper than fear could dull. They had threatened my son. They had underestimated me, and now, without knowing it, they had handed me the evidence I needed to dismantle them. I stood slowly, testing my legs, and took one last look at the storage unit, where the boss paced like a predator. My voice was a whisper in the night, trembling but fierce. You messed with the wrong mother. Then I slipped away, silent as smoke, ready to turn their own darkness against them. The night air sharpened as I slipped away from the warehouse lot, my heart pounding with a strange new rhythm, a blend of fear, fury, and focus. Streetlights flickered along the path toward the train depot, casting long shadows that followed me like silent warnings. Every time I turned a corner, I expected to see the men behind me, but they were still scouring the area near the pub, clueless that the woman they were hunting had already uncovered everything. The depot sat like a relic of a forgotten era, its brick walls cracked, its windows dusty from disuse. A single lamp above the cargo loading dock cast a pale circle of light. It flickered, humming faintly in the cold night breeze. I arrived first. Good. I needed a moment to gather what was left of my strength. Every few seconds, I checked my phone. No new messages, no new threats. Then footsteps, quick, familiar, echoed between the old freight cars. Mom, Caleb appeared from the darkness, his face drawn, eyes swollen with fear and guilt. When he saw me, he froze. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved, Then he broke. He rushed toward me, collapsing into my arms with a sob I had not heard since he was a child. His whole body trembled. "I'm so sorry." He cried against my shoulder. "I didn't want you involved. I didn't know what to do. I thought I could pay them back. I thought." I held his face in my hands, brushing away the streaks of tears on his cheeks. "Caleb, look at me." His gaze was shattered, hopeless. "You should have told me sooner." I whispered gently, "But we're here now, and we're going to fix this together." He shook his head violently. "No, Mom, you don't understand. They won't stop. They think they can use you now, they said. I know what they said. I cut in quietly." He blinked. "What?" "I heard everything, Caleb, every word." I pulled my phone from my pocket and showed him the recording. For a moment, silence engulfed us. His face shifted from confusion to disbelief to a tiny flicker of hope. You recorded them." I nodded, "and the police will be very interested in it." Just as I said those words, headlights swept across the depot, slicing through the darkness. An engine growled, tires crunched against gravel. Caleb stiffened. "Mom, I know," I murmured, pulling him behind a cargo container. "They tracked you, or me." A black SUV rolled to a stop near the loading dock. The doors opened. The bartender stepped out first, scanning the area with the predatory calm of someone who had done this before. The stocky man followed, cracking his knuckles, and then the boss. He emerged slowly, like a king surveying his territory, his scar glinting beneath the depot's flickering light. "Well," he said loudly, "seems the boy still has some tricks, and Mom is smarter than we thought." His voice slithered through the night. Caleb gripped my arm. "We have to run now." "No." I squeezed his hand. "Running won't end this." I stepped out from behind the container before he could stop me. The men turned toward me instantly. "There she is." The bartender sneered. The boss smirked. "I'll give you credit. Not many people crawl out of restroom windows. Resourceful woman." I lifted my chin. My hands shook, but I held them steady. "It's over. I sent everything I recorded to someone who knows exactly what to do with it." The bartender's smirk faltered. The boss raised a brow. "You're bluffing." "No," I said calmly, "I'm not." Like fate itself was waiting for the right cue. The distant wail of sirens cut through the night. The boss's head snapped toward the road. What the red and blue lights appeared over the warehouse roofs, growing closer. Fast, I allowed myself one slow breath. "I'm a mother." I said softly, "You should have known better." The stocky man cursed and reached inside his jacket. But before he could pull anything out, 3 police cars screeched into the depot. Officers spilled out, shouting commands, guns drawn, hands in the air, back away from the woman. Chaos unfurled instantly. The stocky man bolted toward the SUV, but officers tackled him before he took 2 steps. The bartender froze, hands raised high, his face drained of color. The boss stayed composed for exactly 2 seconds before he tried to retreat, but a spotlight pinned him like a trapped animal. "Don't move," an officer barked. There was nowhere to go now. Within minutes, all 3 men were face down on the ground, handcuffed, cursing as officers recited their rights. I stood still, barely breathing, the cold night suddenly too bright. Caleb ran to me, gripping my shoulders. "Mom, how did you?" I sent the recording to an officer I know back home. I said softly. She called it in and had the nearest unit dispatched. He stared at me with wonder and guilt and relief all tangled together. I can't believe this. Mom, I'm so sorry you had to." I pulled him into my arms again, holding him tightly. "What matters is you're safe. That's all that ever mattered." His body shook against mine, this time with overwhelming relief instead of fear. After the officers processed our statements and took the men away, the depot fell silent again, the flickering lamp overhead buzzing like a tired heartbeat. Caleb and I sat on the edge of an old concrete platform, watching the last patrol car disappear down the dark road. He finally spoke, voice raw. "I didn't want you to know how stupid I was. I didn't want you to see how far I'd fallen. I rested my hand on his. Everyone falls, Caleb, but not everyone gets back up. You did, and you asked for help, even if it took a push. He laughed weakly, rubbing his eyes. You were that push. We help each other, I said. That's what family is. He leaned his head on my shoulder, something he hadn't done since he was a child. And for the first time in months, the weight between us lifted. Dawn began to bleed into the sky, soft pink and gold spreading over the quiet tracks. We're going to fix your debts, I said gently, the right way, and we're going to rebuild your life, one step at a time. He nodded, voice trembling. With you here, I feel like I can. You can, I whispered, and you will. As the first morning train clattered in the distance, and the chilled night finally loosened its grip, I realized something. Revenge didn't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes the sweetest justice was simply saving the person you loved, and ending the nightmare that tried to take them away. And together we walked away from the depot, leaving the darkness behind us, ready to face whatever daylight would bring.